Late at night, the 25th floor is silent snow, tapping against the glass as a security guard walks his final round. Ethan Cole, 40 years old, broad-shouldered ex-Navy SEAL in a Navy winter coat, steps past the empty offices when he hears faint piano notes broken and searching, coming from the music room. He follows the sound. Ranger, a 5-year-old German shepherd, shadows him, ears raised inside. A blind girl sits at the grand piano, her small hands feeling for the keys. Ethan Cole slowly takes the second bench, asks gently if he can try playing with her. She tilts her head, smiles toward his voice. Two sets of hands, one scarred by war, one soft with childhood, begin to shape a fragile melody. Behind the half-open door, a woman in a white wool coat stands frozen. Olivia Harper sees her daughter truly happy for the first time. If this story touches your heart, share it, comment below, and subscribe for more inspiring moments. God bless you. Night above the winter city, the winter wind pressed against the glass, its cold breath drifting through the highest floor of the North Star Tower. The 25th floor lay mostly silent, its empty offices lit only by soft golden lines slipping from under half-closed doors. Floors gleamed faintly where the last shift had cleaned hours before. Outside, Seattle shimmered beneath layers of blown snow, the streetlights below flickering like distant lanterns trying to survive the storm. Ethan Cole moved down the long hallway with a steady, deliberate step. He was around 40, tall with broad shoulders shaped by years of military burdens. His face held a quiet ruggedness, the kind born from long nights waiting for danger and long mornings pretending the world was ordinary again. A faint, pale scar curved across his right cheekbone. His dark blonde hair, kept short, bristled slightly under his winter beanie. Every step caused a small hitch in his left knee, the old injury that had followed him home like a soldier who didn't know the war was over. Ethan had served as a Navy SEAL until a blast in an overseas mission fractured more than just bone. It placed something heavy in him, a weight that made silence feel like both friend and enemy. Though his posture was disciplined, there was a tiredness deep in his eyes, a shadow that had stayed even after the uniforms were folded away. Beside him padded Ranger, his service dog. The German shepherd was 5 years old, a large and powerful animal with a thick sable coat that seemed to drink the low light of the corridor. His ears stood sharp, moving with each subtle sound. His amber eyes swept the hall with a practiced vigilance, the look of a creature once trained to detect threats before they found their mark. The black harness around Ranger's chest bore the words, "Service Dog, Do Not Pet," stitched in white. Yet, despite the firmness of the message, his presence radiated warmth, a steady loyalty that had kept Ethan afloat more than once. Ranger's trot was soft but confident, his head slightly lowered in alertness, the way he had done during field operations before becoming Ethan's partner in a quieter kind of war. Ethan checked each emergency exit as part of his routine. The building slept, but he moved as though it were alive, listening, scanning, reading the air. His personality had grown measured over the years, cautious with strangers, yet gentle with those he considered family. People rarely earned his trust quickly, but Ranger had forced his heart open in ways even he didn't understand. Then a sound brushed the air. Thin, clumsy piano notes drifting from beyond the security checkpoint and the glass-walled music room at the end of the hall. Ethan paused mid-stride. The wind outside howled, but this sound was gentler, searching, a melody he recognized immediately. Claire de Lune, but it stumbled as if walking through the deep snow, missing steps, reaching into the dark for something it could not see. Ethan exchanged a glance with Ranger. The dog tilted his head, ears pricking, as if to confirm that, yes, someone was in the music room, and no, it wasn't part of any scheduled event. Curiosity tugged at Ethan, not the suspicious kind his job demanded, but something softer, something human. He walked toward the door, his boots tapping lightly against the polished floor. As he neared the room, the notes grew clearer. They were hesitant, as though the player was chasing the shape of the song instead of its sound. Through the glass, he found her. A little girl, 9 or 10 at most, sat alone at the grand piano. Her dark brown hair fell in soft waves to her shoulders. Her coat, pale gray wool with small buttons shaped like tiny snowflakes, was folded beside her on the bench. The room's warm lights painted her small frame with a gentle glow. What struck Ethan first, though, were her eyes. They did not follow her hands. They did not track the keys or lift toward the sound of the door's hinges. Instead, they remained still, unfocused, fixed on nothing. She was blind. Her fingers, small and pale, moved across the keys with determined trial and error. She pressed a wrong note, paused, pressed another, and exhaled softly as though resetting her courage. Her posture was careful, almost fragile, but there was a quiet strength in the way she leaned in, listening for something only her heart could sense. Ranger approached first, silently lowering himself to the floor near her feet. The little girl startled, not at the sound, but at the warmth of the dog's breath brushing her ankle. She froze, hands hovering above the keys. Ethan gently pushed the door open. The hinges whispered. The storm outside moaned. The girl remained still, waiting. Ethan stepped inside in his navy winter coat, the fabric creasing slightly as he stopped a respectful distance away. His rough, scarred hands flexed unconsciously, as though unsure what to do in a moment that required tenderness rather than strength. Ranger lifted his head and pressed his nose lightly against the girl's leg, careful and slow. She relaxed at the touch, her shoulders lowering with a soft breath. She did not smile, but something in her posture opened, like a closed book accepting the hand that wished to read it. For several seconds, Ethan simply stood there, watching her, watching the way she kept lifting her hands and letting them fall again on the keys, determined to finish a song she could not fully hear. The room felt suspended, the air thick with possibility. He glanced at Ranger, who tilted his head again, almost urging him forward. The child tried another phrase of the melody, stumbled, whispered something to herself that he could not quite hear. A small knot formed in Ethan's chest. She reminded him of someone he had once promised to protect but could not. Grief flickered in his eyes, but he steadied himself. He stepped closer, the soft thump of his siu, boots letting her know he was there. She didn't look up. She couldn't. But her head turned slightly, sensing his presence through sound and vibration. And Ethan Cole, soldier, survivor, stranger in a warm room high above a winter city, found himself wondering the same question that had haunted him through every battlefield and every lonely night since. If there is something you can do to help, how could you ever walk away without trying? The girl touched a wrong key again, then another. Her small shoulders sagged in quiet frustration. Ranger let out the faintest whine, almost encouraging. Ethan inhaled slowly. He could not fix the blind eyes, but maybe, just maybe, he could help her see the music. The chapter ends here. He stood beside her, his weathered hands tightening slightly at his sides. Ranger tilted his head, waiting. The little girl pressed another trembling note, the melody stumbling, then trying to rise once more. And in the space between those fragile sounds, a single question formed in Ethan's heart. What could he do to help this child? The music in the dark. The room held its breath as Ethan stepped closer, the faint scent of polished wood and winter air drifting around him. Ranger shifted slightly, his claws tapping softly against the floor. A gentle rhythm Mia picked up instantly. She turned her head toward the sound with a small, curious lift of her chin. Her face was soft and round, framed by loose strands of chestnut hair. Her skin carried the pale translucence of children who spent more time indoors than out, but her cheeks had a faint warmth to them, the kind that spoke of hope rather than frailty. Ethan cleared his throat quietly. "My name is Ethan Cole," he said in a low, steady voice, shaped by years of speaking softly during night operations. "I'm the night security officer here." Mia listened with full concentration, her eyebrows forming a tiny crease of focus. She nodded. "I know. I could hear your boots from the hallway. They sound heavier than the daytime guards." Her lips curved into an innocent half-smile. "You walk like someone who carries things inside." Ethan blinked, surprised by the accuracy of her words. Children saw in ways adults forgot. "I'm Mia Harper," she added. "I don't see like everyone else, so I look with my ears instead. Sometimes I think it's better that way." Ranger lifted his head, and Mia reached a hand toward the soft rustle of his harness. She touched the air first, cautious, then found his fur. "Oh," she whispered. "You're warm." Ethan watched the gentle connection, something tightening in his chest. "He's Ranger," he said, "my service dog. He helps me with things." Mia's fingers rested near Ranger's ears. "Bad dreams?" she asked softly. She had no way to know, yet she somehow did. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Yes, bad dreams." Her expression softened even further, not with pity, but with understanding that felt older than her years. She returned her hands to the piano keys, pressing two uncertain notes that wavered in the air like small birds unsure of where to land. "I'm trying to play Clair de Lune," she said, "but I only hear people practice it sometimes. I don't have the sheet music, or the eyes to read it." Ethan's heart stirred. The melody had followed him through deployments, through sleepless nights on cold steel floors, through sunsets reflected off desert dunes. And hearing it here, broken and brave, felt like someone had reached into the memories he kept locked tight. "That piece is difficult even with both eyes," Ethan murmured. "I don't mind difficult," Mia replied. "I just want it to sound like the sky." He smiled despite himself. "That's a good reason." Ethan crossed the room and sat at the second piano, its cover polished to a mirror sheen. His reflection looked older than he felt, though the difference wasn't much. Ranger followed him, lying down between the two benches where he could watch them both. Ethan placed his fingers on the keys, letting them rest there, still, grounded, as though asking permission from the instrument. "Would it be okay," he asked, "if I tried playing along with you?" Mia turned toward the faint sound of his coat shifting. She tilted her head, listening for what came next. After a few silent seconds, she smiled. "If you tell me when you change the chords," she said, "I'll try to follow. My ears are fast. My fingers, not always." Ethan nodded. "I can work with that." He played the opening chords, soft and careful, giving Mia room to breathe between them. She joined him tentatively, her fingers trembling as they searched for the right notes. For the first time since he entered, she did not look lost. She looked present, anchored by sound. When she missed a key, Ranger's tail thumped once, like gentle encouragement. They played a few more phrases until Mia leaned forward, brow furrowing. "It feels like the song is hiding," she said, "but it wants to be found." Ethan swallowed the knot in his throat. "That's music," he said, "and sometimes life." From that night on, he found himself returning after each shift. The room became their quiet refuge, two pianos, one dog, and a little girl who played the dark like it was a map only she could read. He taught her how to feel the silence before the note, how to let her heartbeat guide her timing, how to listen not just outward, but inward. Ranger would lie between them, breathing slow and steady, almost like a metronome in fur. Sometimes, Ethan caught himself laughing, an unfamiliar sound after so many years of burying joy beneath duty. One evening, as she practiced a soft crescendo, Mia asked, "Mr. Cole, do you think dogs hear colors?" Ethan chuckled. "Ranger does. He's smarter than both of us." She reached down and stroked Ranger's back. "I call him Sir Dog," she said, "because he guards me even though no one told him to." Ethan felt warmth rise inside him, a feeling that scattered the cold shadows he carried. Mia talked freely when she trusted someone. She told him her mother was always in meetings, always rushing, always tired. "The CEO of North Star," she said, but she whispered it like it wasn't something she liked to brag about. "I stay here after school because Mom says it's safe and quiet," Mia murmured. "But it's quieter when you're here, not empty quiet, just safe quiet." Ethan's chest tightened again. In ways he didn't fully understand, he needed this quiet too. As the night drew on and the storm outside thickened, they worked through the most fragile part of the melody. Her fingers trembled, hesitated, then found their courage again. He watched her grow in sound, watched confidence bloom in the space where sight could not reach. Ranger shifted and let out a soft sigh, curling closer to Mia's legs. Ethan lifted his hands from the keys, letting the last note fade like falling snow. He turned toward her. "You're getting better," he said. Mia nodded, her unfocused eyes turning toward the warmth of his voice. "It's because you teach me how to hear the music," she whispered, "not just play it." Outside, the wind howled, but in the warm room high above the city, two pianos rested like hearts finally beating in harmony. And Ethan realized, quietly and unexpectedly, that the child was teaching him, too, how to return to a world he thought he had lost. Storm, suspicion, and the weight of loss. The storm outside battered the windows in desperate waves, rattling the glass as though trying to claw its way into the warm music room. Snow whirled against the night like pale ghosts, blurring the city lights beyond the tall panes. Inside, the soft glow of the overhead lamp fell over two pianos facing each other, and the small girl seated between them, hands poised over the keys. Mia Harper sat upright, her posture fragile yet composed. Her unfocused eyes faced forward, but her attention remained fixed on the trembling pattern of Ethan's playing. Her fingers danced across the keys with hesitant confidence, guided by the quiet cues from the man sitting opposite her. The tune they worked on tonight was a piece Ethan remembered from his early training years, one that always reminded him of the sound of rainfall gathering on metal roofs during deployments overseas. Ranger lay stretched across the entrance to the room, his body forming a protective barrier without ever being instructed. His ears flicked back and forth, reading the tension in the air, the growing storm, the rising emotion in the notes. The dog's large paws rested squarely on the polished floor, claws gleaming faintly under the dim lighting. "Again," Ethan murmured, keeping his tone soft to avoid startling Mia. She nodded, tapping her foot lightly, searching for the rhythm before striking the first chord. They barely made it through the opening phrase when the door burst open. Ranger leapt to his feet instantly. A tall, broad-shouldered man filled the doorway, snow caught on the collar of his dark wool coat. Graham Walters, head of the building operations, was in his early 50s, with thinning blonde hair and a ruddy, weathered face that suggested a life spent barking orders rather than listening. Deep creases carved the sides of his mouth, the marks of someone who frowned more often than smiled. His small, pale blue eyes darted between Ethan, Mia, and Ranger, with suspicion already hardened into judgment. Behind him stood a younger security guard, lanky and stiff, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. His name tag read Kyle, and he looked no older than 22. His brown hair was cropped short, and he kept shifting from one foot to the other as though wishing he was anywhere else. Graham pointed an accusing finger. "What exactly is happening here?" Ethan rose slowly from the bench, raising a calm hand toward Ranger, who held his ground but remained silent, trained, steady, a wall of fur and instinct. "Mr. Walters," Ethan said evenly, "everything is fine. I'm helping Mia practice." "You are not authorized to be in this room after hours," Graham snapped. "And you certainly are not authorized to be alone with a child. A VIP child." Mia flinched at the harsh tone. "Mr. Walters, please," she said quickly. "Mr. Cole is teaching me piano. He didn't—" "Enough." Graham's voice whipped through the room like the wind outside. He stepped forward, but Ranger immediately moved between him and Mia, body rigid, ears pinned forward, tail low but still. Kyle, the young guard, took a nervous step backward. Graham ignored the warning posture of the dog and continued, voice sharp with authority he enjoyed wielding. "A blind child alone with a former military. What did you think this looks like?" His gaze swept Ethan's tall frame, the rugged jaw, the faint scars, the discipline still lingering in his stance. "And a trained attack dog? Absolutely unacceptable." Ethan clenched his jaw. Attack dog? He hated that term. Ranger had saved lives, not ended them. "Sir," Ethan said slowly, keeping his voice controlled, "you're misunderstanding the situation. Mia asked for help. I was just—" "Overstepping," Graham sliced the air with the word. "You used your access to get into a restricted area with a minor. This isn't up for debate." Mia's hands curled over her knees. "No!" she cried. "Please, he didn't do anything wrong. Sir Dog was guarding me." Ranger whined softly at her distress and pressed closer, nudging her leg. Mia reached down, threading her fingers through his fur, but Graham had already made up his mind. It was visible in the rigid line of his shoulders, the way he stood taller when punishing someone who couldn't fight back. "Hand over your key card," he ordered. Ethan felt a familiar sensation wash over him, the tightening in his chest, the faint echo of moments when wrong decisions from superiors cost innocent people dearly. He kept his hands steady as he unhooked the lanyard. "Let Mia speak," he said quietly. Graham snatched the card. "She will, to her mother, and to the board, and possibly the police." Kyle's face paled, but he said nothing. Ethan opened his mouth again, but Graham cut him off with a raised palm. "You are relieved of duty, effective immediately." The room fell silent, broken only by Mia's breath beginning to tremble. "No, please don't take him away," she whispered. Her fingers tightened around Ranger's fur as though anchoring herself. Graham turned away, signaling Kyle to follow. "Escort him off the premises." Ethan stood still for one last moment. The only sound was the faint tapping of Mia's foot, her way of searching for something to hold on to when the world suddenly tilted. He knelt beside her, voice low. "It's okay, Mia." "No, it isn't," she whispered. Ranger pressed his head into her lap, letting her hold him for as long as she needed. Ethan could swear the dog understood every word, every feeling, every fracture inside the little girl's voice. Finally, Ethan stood, placing a hand briefly on Ranger's shoulder. "Come on, boy." Ranger hesitated, truly hesitated, for the first time. A soft rumble vibrated in his chest. Not threatening, but grieving. Outside, the storm swallowed them whole, snow swirling as Ethan and Ranger stepped into the night. The glass tower behind them glowed gold against the dark, but for the first time, it felt cold. The next evening, the music room remained silent. Mia sat before the piano, her fingers resting on the keys without moving. She didn't dare play. She didn't dare draw attention. Inside her coat pocket, she clutched the small bracelet Ethan had given her. "Play with your heart." But tonight, her heart felt too heavy to lift the music. The Mother, the Truth, and a song torn in half snow fell in quiet sheets across the city, soft at first, then heavier, as though the sky could no longer hold its own weight. The parking garage beneath the North Star Tower hummed faintly with the distant whir of ventilation fans, the sound echoing off concrete pillars like muted drums. Olivia Harper ended her final conference call of the day inside her sleek black sedan, her voice calm though exhaustion tugged at every syllable. She was 38, tall and slender, with a poised, commanding presence. Her dark chestnut hair, usually smoothed into a flawless twist for meetings, now fell loosely around her shoulders. Her skin held a warm olive tone, yet tonight it appeared pale from lack of sleep. Olivia wore a fitted white wool coat, the edges dusted with snow from her hurried walk earlier. And although her sharp brown eyes had the focus of a strategist accustomed to boardrooms and negotiations, a faint shadow lived behind them. A shadow born of years, spent believing that providing for her daughter meant being absent from her daughter. She rubbed her temples, trying to soothe the ache of too many deadlines and too little rest. "Another quarter," she whispered to herself. "Just get through another quarter." It was the lie she had told herself for years. As she prepared to start the engine, a slow creeping unease wrapped around her chest. Mia. Her daughter should have been picked up hours ago from the private study lounge on the lower floor. But earlier, knowing she would run late, Olivia had asked her assistant to allow Mia to wait on the music floor instead. "It's safe up there," she had said. Yet the building felt too quiet tonight, the storm too strong, the sense of something forgotten too sharp. Olivia grabbed her keys and stepped out of the car, her heels echoing sharply through the garage. She moved quickly toward the elevator, pressing the button with a tight breath. The ascent felt endless, each floor clicking by in slow succession. The storm hissed through the glass walls of the elevator shaft, as if urging her upward faster. When the doors opened onto the 25th floor, she stepped out into a hallway hushed except for the muffled roar of wind battering the windows. No music, no soft echo of piano keys, no familiar humming from her daughter. Her pulse quickened. She quickened her pace, boots tapping sharply against the polished floor. The music room door came into view at the end of the corridor, dark behind its frosted glass. Olivia reached for the handle with a hand that trembled more than she expected. Inside, Mia sat frozen on the piano bench. Her small hands rested on the keys without pressing them. Her unfocused eyes stared forward as though lost in a place nobody could reach. "Mia?" Olivia whispered. The girl turned toward the sound of her mother's voice with a small, startled breath. "Mom?" Olivia's chest loosened and tightened all at once. She crossed the room in quick strides and knelt beside her daughter. "Sweetheart, why aren't you playing? Are you cold? Did something happen?" Mia hesitated, a dangerous, fragile pause. "Mr. Cole used to help me," she finally whispered, her voice thin. "He taught me the parts I couldn't hear on my own. But he's gone now. People got angry. I didn't want to make it worse." Olivia blinked. "Who is Mr. Cole?" "The man with the dog," Mia said, fingers curling into her lap. He listened to the music with me." A thread of irritation pulled at Olivia. She stood, immediately calling for the building's operations manager over the intercom. Graham Walters arrived within minutes, his heavy boots thumping loudly down the hall. He appeared breathless from speed, cheeks flushed from moving between warm indoor air and the icy corridor. He straightened his coat before entering the room, as though buttoning up his authority. "Ms. Harper," he said, voice respectful but strained. "Is everything all right?" Olivia crossed her arms, her expression sharp. "My daughter mentioned someone, a security guard, helping her with piano lessons. A man with a dog." Why is this the first I'm hearing of it? Graham's jaw tightened, the muscles bunching slightly beneath ruddy skin. That man was Ethan Cole, one of our night guards. I removed him. He was overstepping, spending unauthorized time with your daughter. I acted immediately to protect the building's reputation. And yours. Olivia's eyes narrowed. Overstepping, or did he simply show kindness? Graham shifted, uncomfortable at the implication. With respect, Ms. Harper, he's ex-military, a difficult type, not stable, bringing his dog into a VIP area, acting outside protocol, and you fired him, Olivia finished. Yes, he said firmly, for safety. Olivia stared at him for a long moment, then dismissed him with a cool nod. We will discuss this later. Graham hesitated, then left the room, closing the door behind him. For the next few days, Olivia tried to ignore the nagging pull at her conscience. Too many meetings, too many fires to put out. She told herself Mia was fine, children adapt. But then one evening, she returned to the building during an unexpected snowfall. She stepped out of the elevator, intending only to retrieve a forgotten folder, when she heard it. A single piano line drifting down the hallway. Not full, not complete, just a melody searching for its missing half. Her heart tightened. Olivia moved toward the sound, careful not to disturb it. Through the narrow window of the music room door, she found Mia sitting alone again. Her small shoulders leaned forward with an intensity that made Olivia's throat ache. What are you playing? She asked gently, stepping inside. Mia turned toward her, unfocused eyes, hopeful. It's Mr. Cole's song, the one he didn't finish teaching me. I'm trying to find the ending. Olivia knelt beside her. Tell me about him. And Mia did. She spoke of Ethan's calm voice, his steady encouragement, the way he taught her to hear the color of the sky and the sound of snow touching glass. She described Ranger as though he were a guardian angel made of fur and breath. She spoke of how Ethan never grabbed her hands, never corrected her by force, only guided her through silence, letting her discover the right notes on her own. As Mia spoke, Olivia felt something inside her shift. A quiet guilt began to seep through the cracks of her carefully built life. For the first time in years, she realized she did not truly know her daughter, not her fears, not her joys, not her music. And she wondered, with a heaviness she could not ignore, what else had she missed while chasing the future? The winter song for the things we cannot see, snow drifted across the glass facade of the North Star Tower in soft spirals, settling like powdered frost along the window frames. On the 25th floor, the lights glowed warmer than usual, a hush falling over the offices as December wound its way toward Christmas. Olivia Harper walked with purpose through the corridor, her heels tapping a steady rhythm, born not of urgency but of quiet resolve. She carried a thin folder under her arm, its corners slightly worn from being handled too many times. Inside were reports, emails, and finally, security footage she had personally requested. Her long white wool coat flowed behind her as she walked, brushing softly against her navy dress trousers. Her chestnut hair, normally styled in controlled elegance, hung freer tonight, falling in soft waves past her shoulders. Olivia paused outside the HR office. She took a steadying breath before stepping inside. The department director, Marianne Lewis, looked up from a stack of documents. Marianne was a woman in her late 40s, with short salt and pepper curls and warm brown skin. Her hazel eyes were sharp but not unkind, the kind that made employees feel both seen and accountable. She wore a burgundy cardigan over a black blouse, and there was a certain groundedness in the way she spoke, as though years of resolving office disputes had trained her to weigh every word carefully before letting it leave her mouth. Ms. Harper, Marianne said, adjusting her glasses, you requested the full file regarding the Cole incident. Olivia nodded and placed the folder before her. I've reviewed every page, she said, and I want to be absolutely certain that nothing has been overlooked. Marianne opened her own copy of the file. The termination followed protocol, she began, or rather the protocol as presented to us by Mr. Walters. He framed it, Olivia finished quietly. Marianne's brows lifted faintly. Well, I wouldn't use that exact word, but the narrative leaned heavily on perceived risk rather than facts. Show me the camera footage again, Olivia said. Marianne swiveled the monitor toward her and clicked open the archived video. Grainy black and white images flickered to life. Ethan appeared in uniform, posture calm, never touching Mia beyond a reassuring pat on the shoulder when she grew nervous. Ranger lay between them like a silent guardian, never aggressive, always alert. The footage revealed a man who kept respectful distance, who stepped back so Mia could step forward. No impropriety, no recklessness, no threat, only kindness. Olivia felt the sharp pinch of guilt twist inside her, sharp enough that she pressed a hand over her chest. The only thing he did wrong, she murmured, was give her his time. Marianne closed the file gently. Do you want to proceed with internal review, or do you have something else in mind? Olivia straightened, shaking away the weight of indecision. I want him back, she said, but not as a guard. I want him where he belongs. The following week, Olivia called for a company-wide meeting. She stood on the raised platform in the main atrium, facing hundreds of employees. The winter sun poured through the tall windows, casting gold light over the crowd. She wore a deep navy blazer, her hair pinned back in a simple twist. The picture of corporate composure, except her eyes held something new tonight, something warmer. She began with a story. A year ago, a man worked here who was more than what his badge said he was. He was a veteran, a father, a man who had spent his life protecting others in silence. A ripple moved through the crowd as she spoke. Several staff recognized the description. He formed an unexpected bond with a little girl who could not see, Olivia continued. He taught her music not because it was his job, but because she needed someone to believe she could make it. She paused, breathing slowly. That little girl is my daughter. The employees murmured, heads turned. Several gasped softly. Others bowed their heads with a mix of guilt and respect. Olivia gestured toward the side of the stage. And so today, I invite him back, not as security, but as the music program director for the North Star Foundation, a new initiative dedicated to children with disabilities and the children of veterans. Please welcome Mr. Ethan Cole. Ethan stepped onto the stage in a modest charcoal suit. His hair was neatly trimmed, his posture strong yet hesitant, as though unsure whether he belonged in a spotlight. Ranger walked beside him, wearing a clean new service vest embroidered with the North Star emblem. His amber eyes scanned the crowd with calm authority. The room erupted in applause. Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to realization, then to something softer, a mix of relief and belonging. In the front row, Mia stood with her white cane, her fingers curled around a new bracelet engraved with the words, "Music is how we see." When she heard Ethan's footsteps approach, her face brightened with unmistakable joy. He knelt beside her. Ranger lowered his head too, pressing gently against Mia's leg. "Ready?" Ethan whispered. Mia nodded. "Let's finish the song." 1 year later, the North Star Music Hall gleamed under winter lights, its glass walls overlooking rooftops dusted in snow. Inside, 30 children gathered on stage, some with white canes, some in wheelchairs, others with hearing aids glinting under the soft spotlights. At the center stood 2 grand pianos. Ethan wore a simple conductor's suit, though his face held the same rugged kindness as before. Ranger lay near the edge of the stage, ears perked, tail sweeping slowly against the polished floor. Mia took her place beside Ethan. Her hands rested confidently on the keys, her head tilted slightly as, though listening to something invisible, the hall quieted. Then, together, they began to play. The winter things we cannot see rose through the air, gentle, hopeful, filled with the kind of understanding only shared wounds can create. The children joined in with violins, flutes, cellos, their music weaving into a tapestry of courage and soft triumph. Olivia sat in the front row, her phone tucked away for once. She watched her daughter shine without needing eyes, watched Ethan guide a generation of children toward a world only they could hear, watched Ranger guard them all like a silent promise. When the final note faded, the applause crashed like a warm wave. Ethan bowed. Mia turned toward the audience. Ranger lifted his head proudly. After the performance, they walked out into the snowy courtyard. The lights twinkled across the frost, painting soft halos around their silhouettes. Mia held Ethan's hand. Her other hand rested on Ranger's head. "Mr. Ethan," she whispered, "you once asked what you could do to help me. I think you already did." Ethan cupped her small hand between his rough palms. Then he brushed the snow from Ranger's fur. He was no longer a lost soldier wandering a glass tower. He was home. As Ethan, Mia, and Ranger stepped into the quiet snowfall outside the North Star Music Hall, it felt as though something greater had been guiding their footsteps. Some call it fate, others call it grace. But anyone who has walked through loss and found hope again knows this simple truth. Every act of kindness opens the door for miracles, and every miracle is a quiet reminder from God that we never walk alone. In our everyday lives, we may not stand on a stage or play music that fills a concert hall, but we do meet people who need a gentle word, a patient ear, or a moment of understanding. And without realizing it, we may become the answer to a prayer someone whispered when no one else was listening. Let this story remind us that God often works through ordinary souls: a wounded soldier trying to rebuild himself, a little girl who sees the world through sound, a loyal dog who protects without needing praise, a mother rediscovering her child's heart. Together, they became part of a quiet miracle, one God shaped softly, like snow falling over the city. If you believe in compassion, redemption, and the everyday miracles God sends our way, share this story with someone who needs comfort today. Before you go, comment where you're watching from, share this video to bless someone else. Subscribe for more stories of faith, hope, courage, and second chances. May God bless you and your family. May He guide your steps, strengthen your spirit, and help you become a small miracle in someone else's day. God bless you.